Hello, YouTube land. This is Brenton coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Before we get started, if anyone out there has a story they would like to share on this show, you can contact me at brentonsawin@gmail.com. I'll leave that in the description. And if anyone wants to contribute to help with this show, you can go to a link in the description, PayPal me. Every contribution is appreciated. And I want to say thank you to everyone who has contributed here this month. It has been very, very helpful. And, these are some times where YouTube's going through some things, losing advertisers and stuff like that. So it's appreciated very much. We have like a really, really cool story today. There's going to be some things that kind of stand out to you. I know I've got regulars that listen to this show that are going to. I think you're going to see two things that really stand out big time, and we'll see what you say in the comments. But this fella, I'm going to let him introduce himself, and then we're going to let him tell his story. All right. Hey, bud, what's up?
Okay, hi, thank you. My name is Stephen Hudson. I'm originally from Oklahoma City. I've been involved in the hotel business for about 23 years, and I work for a company where I'm sent around quite a bit, and I was sent to Miami, Florida, the Cutler Bay area, which is close to the Everglades, and I had a little time one evening to step out. I had never been to Miami before. That was the first trip I'd had there. So I just simply had a Uber driver drive me to the Everglades, where they kind of have glass boat rides where you can see the alligators and the crocodiles that live down there, and just kind of explore the Everglades. And he, I told him to come back maybe in about an hour. I'm just going to kind of, socialize and just see what it's like. And it was great. And I made my way down to kind of where they take off with the boat rides. And then, of course, there's places you can walk around the Everglades, just kind of explore it. And Bigfoot, I'd always believed in it. I never expected to ever have any kind of experience. I've always enjoyed listening to shows and listening to other people's stories, because I've heard a lot of great ones. And like I said, I've always believed in it. I always knew they were real, but you just don't think it's going to happen to you.
Right. So when you were a kid, did you ever read any Bigfoot stories or watch any Bigfoot movies? And
yeah, this movie, the Loch Ness Monster, the Loch Ness was something I always was interested in and studied. And then, of course, Bigfoot followed that. They're kind of, the abominable snowman, the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot. So as a kid, I was really interested in that.
Do you remember seeing any, pictures or anything like that, like the Patterson, Gimlin stuff? Or
the Patterson and Gimlin film was fascinating, but the movie from what was that called? It was a real life story out of Arkansas that they ran into
the Boggy Creek.
Yeah, Boggy Creek. Right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, but they didn't really show it in that, did they?
No, they didn't. They just showed all these haunting stories, and they told the story of the real life event that happened, where the hand came through the window, the people that kind of lived out in the wooded areas, and then after that happened, of course, they moved away. They just told a story about a Bigfoot that kind of was stalking them in a way.
Right, yeah, and it was an awesome movie.
Oh, yeah.
I watched it on YouTube several times. So what I'm getting at is, did you have any idea what a Bigfoot was supposed to look like?
Yeah, I did. I knew that we had a really good idea, and I know they're different sizes. I mean, some of them are bigger than others, but I knew they're all above average of a man, of course, and what they look like. I did know basically what it would probably look like, but I did not expect to see the one I saw and the size he was. I thought it would be something more like, you're 8 or 9 or 7, which is still incredible. This one was mind-boggling, because I did not dream that I would see something like that.
So you lived in what state?
I'm in Oklahoma City, but Florida. I was visiting the Cutler Bay area of Miami, Florida, and I was down there doing some hotel work while I was living at the hotel. And then during the evening, when dusk settles in, you can kind of go out and explore the city.
Right, yeah. So now, you were down in southern Florida, correct?
Right, yeah, the southern Florida, yes.
Where typically you would hear about, the skunk ape.
That's it. And if you look on YouTube, there's someone that actually got some evidence of that. I was looking on YouTube about that, and of course, when it happens to you, you don't have any way of doing it. And of course, someone recently got some kind of video footage of one they saw down there also.
Right. Yeah. You didn't see the skunk ape. Now I have a friend that lives down there, and he has a show called Crypto Reality, and I think he's seen what you saw, and it looked more man-like,
Yes.
like an ancient man, and sculpted like crazy. It was just like perfectly like a Greek god,
Exactly.
kind of thing. So before, I was just kind of trying to set it up there, to kind of build it up a little bit. If you want to, I guess just start with your what you did that morning and kind of take us through your day there and then what happened.
Okay, I do audits for hotels, and I fill in for general management. A lot of times I do, as a traveling general manager, they have you always doing things, and mainly I do audits, though. But I was down there doing general management training with a general manager at Cutler Bay named Walter Cottle. I was down there training with him, and he's been there for quite a number of years. He lives in the Florida area, went to Florida State University. But anyway, he showed me around, and of course he does not live there at the hotel. He goes home on the weekends. Of course, I have to stay there, and I just had some time on my hands after we had trained 1 week, so I called an Uber driver to kind of take me down to the Everglades, the area where people can explore and walk around and take boat rides. And I was by myself, and I enjoyed it a lot. And a lot of people were down there here and there. Then people started thinning out as the evening started progressing. People were leaving, and I was simply, after I had done a lot of exploring, I was just simply making my way back up to the kind of the entryway where people were dropped off and people drive into before they can.
Were there any trees? I don't mean to interrupt you, but were there any trees in this area in the Everglades you were at?
There's a ton of them. I mean, a ton of brush and trees where a lot of things can hide.
Okay, because a lot of times I think when I think of the Everglades, I think of like a flat area where it's water with the grass stuff, and that's all like the grass and then the water. So you're in an area of the Everglades that has actually trees and all.
Right. If I had walked further, what you just described is perfect. If you get on the boat, that's exactly what it's like when you're going out to the main part. But yeah, if you're kind of up further in, you're like where all the trees and the palm trees and all the stuff that grows there.
Okay. All right. So that gives a place for these things to be. All right, so you can continue. I was just kind of, trying to set it up what it looks like, because when you say Everglades, most people think of I think the grassy type area with water. It's kind of like a swamp,
Right, exactly. Yeah, swamp and the other inland grounds too. I guess they could probably walk quite some distance. They may hunt down there, then go back to maybe where they stay. I'm not for sure. But what it was is when I was on just the solid ground, walking up out of the tree area where there's a lot of trees and all kinds of things, and I heard a noise to my left, and I kind of glanced just real slowly, not thinking much of it, because wind blows, things fall off of trees, leaves, everything, sticks, crackle, and I turn around and I see it was big, but I knew exactly what it was. But I know what a basketball rim's 10 feet tall. This was at least 2 feet above that. He could have probably looked inside a basketball rim. He was wide and thick, and he didn't have weight on him. He had size. He was covered in hair, but I could see his face clearly. And he had just complete strength. It was just a mountain of strength. He didn't have like a bunch of weight and hair. He had hair, but he was just a solid, just mass, and he was huge. And he had a peaceful look on his face. He did not look angry. He did not look threatened, because I've heard so many stories where they get angry, they growl, they do all kinds of things, but he was not one of those. And he was I could see in his eyes, it looked almost like you said, an ancient man. And I I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'd never expected to see anything like that. And he was not aggressive. He just simply was studying me. I guess seeing what I was doing or where I was going, because I was alone at the time, and there was not many people around where I was at. And I was just simply making my way back up where more people were at, because I was all alone. And he was just simply probably wanting to know what I was doing. He just kept watching me. And then as I sat there and kind of, looked at him, he just kind of pointed, his hand raised, he just kind of pointed and looked the way I was going, meaning that that's the way out. And he said in a real low tone voice, but I could hear it very clearly. I mean, these can actually speak, which is incredible. And he said, it sounded exactly like "we watch," and in a real low tone voice, but it was very clear. And I was just, after that, I was just blown away.
Yeah, that's incredible. I
still am. Even today, I get. I can't get over it.
When he pointed and pointed you to the way that you needed to go to get out of there, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay, so
and the way he pointed was exactly the way out too. He knew the way out because it was exactly the way out.
So he was kind of assisting you, like it's that way. You need to go that way. That's the way you need to go. Is that kind of what it felt like?
Right, exactly, because it's like, they don't know us. They don't really know what we're going to do, and we're kind of the same way about them, but he's thinking, okay, I see this person or whatever they think of us, like, I don't know if he's going to go this way to the right into some more trees, or is he going to do that, but he needs to go forward so he can make his way out, and I think that's what he thought, that's what I was doing, but I don't think he knew that, so he was just making sure that I was going to keep going that way.
And when he pointed, it felt like he was saying that way.
Yeah, that way. Like, yeah, it's that way. Like if someone...
That's cool, someone man.
Said, someone said, excuse me, kid, do you know what way someone... And someone said, yeah, it's that way.
Yeah, that is awesome, man. For real, dude. That's really cool. And
thank you.
And then after that, he said... He started walking, but he kept his eyes on you.
Yeah, he did. It's like he was not aggressive. He was being actually very respectful. It was just unbelievable. So I kept walking, and then all of a sudden I hear, the crackling and because when he walked, you could feel, I thought I felt the ground, under me, because, he is size, and he wasn't walking hard or trying to stop. He was just walking, but he was so large that I could feel the presence behind me, and he was just basically slowly following me to make sure I made it out.
How far away was he, you think?
Oh, my God. He was probably no more than maybe 17 yards to my left, and then when he started following me, he made his way a little closer, and he was probably 10 yards away, kind of behind me.
Wow, that's pretty darn close. Yeah.
Yeah, and if he wanted to do something, I wouldn't be here. So I know he wasn't trying to. He did not want to do anything harmful. He just simply wanted to make sure I made my way out. And I don't know if it was because he cared or if it was because he didn't want me to draw attention to what he was doing or whatever the case may be.
Right. And then what point did he say "we watch"? After he pointed?
Yeah, no, he pointed and he didn't say anything. I started walking because I thought, I don't know what's going to happen. So he slowly, felt him following me. Then right when I reached the end, like right when you're going to come up to the area where you can make your way out, I turned around one more time, and that's when he said it.
Wow, that's incredible.
And then when I was going to say, I thought when the Uber driver gets here, I'm going to tell him everything that's going on. But then when I turned around, he was gone. It was like he just vanished into thin air. You know how they say they're there 1 minute, then they're gone. When you turn around to try to say, hey, look at this, he was just gone.
Right. Yeah, they're good at getting out of there and hiding right quick.
Right, it was unreal.
So when he said, we watch, have you ever thought about like the watchers and stuff like that in the Bible?
Yes, that's exactly what I started thinking of when he said that.
Yeah, that's quite incredible. Now, you said he looked like, when you described what he looked like, he was kind of hairy, like a Bigfoot would be, but he was more human-like in the face. Can you kind of give a description of what he looked like?
Yeah, I would say if you removed, because I could see his face, if say you removed his hair, he would look like an ancient, maybe Native American, or he would look like an ancient man. And his hair was dark. It was really dark, and but it wasn't like hanging in his face, or like, I mean, you could see his arms, you could see his arms were just to his waist. People always talk about how they're below their knees, but his was almost like a man's. It didn't look abnormal. They looked perfectly proportioned. And you could see the ripples in his arms and his legs. I mean, his legs were strong. His arms were powerful. His shoulders, his chest, everything. He was just perfectly built, and he was just. He was a mountain of just complete strength that I don't know. I mean, there's no telling how strong he was, but it was unreal just to see it. Just to see him, I could tell he could do just probably about anything.
Right, and you're saying that his face didn't, it was almost like hairy all over, but his face didn't have hair.
Right, his face, you can see his eyes, his eyebrows, his lips, his nose. I mean, you see the bone structure. That's what fascinated me. And I thought if you take the hair, because a million times in my mind, I thought if you remove the hair, he would almost look like a Native American. Right. That's what I kept thinking, like a Native American would look like, or an ancient man would look like. Right. That's what I kept thinking. And if I remove his hair, I kept thinking that in my mind. If I remove his hair, that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah. It made me think about sometimes when people report these things. There's a type that looks more human, and a type that looks more like Patty. And
exactly.
The more human type, they typically, a lot of times they call them like the ancient ones, like they're a primitive human type. They're just more human looking. Did he have like a hairdo, like you could see like hair, like if he had like a head of hair that was coming down onto the hair on his body?
Yeah, it was like someone that would take their hair and they would comb it back, and then it's kind of got the wing in the back, kind of like where the hair is kind of long past his shoulders, but it's combed back like where it's off his forehead and everything.
Wow.
So like someone that just got through swimming and they comb their hair back, and their hair's kind of dangling in the back.
Right. So he kind of like had a head of hair.
Yeah, yes, he did. And
Wow.
And it was wet. So I guess he was hunting. I don't know what he was doing, but he may have been in the water or something.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, it's probably hot down there too, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's really warm, and yeah, it's hot.
Yeah. Man, that's incredible. Did you kind of sense that there might be other ones around, or he was just watching, kind of like a sentinel?
I sensed that there were others in the area. I mean, I just know there were, but he was the one, I guess, that maybe was the one that was leading the way. I don't know if he's the one that controls the others. I don't know if that's how they do it.
Right. Wow. And I mean, you didn't feel like you were in danger. You were just trying to help you get out of the area so he could be do his job. Like he had a job to do. It's like, okay, make sure this guy gets out of this area.
Yeah, for a split second I thought I could be, but then when I literally looked at him and I saw his eyes and I saw how peaceful he was and how he was out, I mean, he was intelligent. It's like he could think and reason. He wasn't one of these that is just wild, and I could tell he was simply, like you said, doing a job and just and thinking he's helping me too. I mean, I knew what I was doing, but of course he didn't know that, and I guess he just wanted to make sure that that I'm going the right way.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool, man. I think that's very interesting. To help
and he never
you go is like that way, it's like you're going the right direction, just keep going,
He never once acted aggressive or never once did anything to make me feel like he would do something. That was what was incredible, because of the stories I hear, they throw things, they do this, they do that he didn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times it depends on like the situation. If you're around and they have their little ones around, I think sometimes it might get aggressive. or if
Right.
they're trying to be opportunistic, they might throw stuff to direct your attention in a certain direction and come down and, and steal something from you, or, there's lots of different scenarios. Sometimes people feed them and then they quit feeding them, and they get aggressive. And so, it sounds like to me you just ran across the territory and he was watching that area, and his job was to make sure that the humans went on, and he could see that you were going on your way, and he just making sure, so that way you keep going, and you're going to get out of here. Everything's going to be all right.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, everything will be okay if you just keep going that way, and
Yeah, and if you had went toward him, and started invading the territory, that might have been a whole different deal. But
yeah, that's the part I did not. Yeah, I could not tell. You're right. I think you may be right, but he didn't ever act that way. But I don't know if I would have really wanted to find out.
yeah, for real. So you think this thing was 1,000 pounds?
Yeah, I mean, at least, because I could tell by the thickness and by just because I could see his structure, and there's no question he was probably a ton and 12 feet. And he was wide, and he was thick, and he was but we wasn't carrying like people think of that, and they think, well, there's a ton of weight, but his weight was all proportioned. It was perfectly built. I mean, perfectly proportioned. He carried it perfectly, and he was just, the strength he had was just incredible. I could see that.
Yeah, 12 feet. My goodness, that's huge. But they do get that big. I mean, especially the more human type ones seem to be a lot of times. People. I have one lady that emailed me here a little while back, and she said, "I don't know what to call this kind. It looked more human," and she said it had tusk, and it was more close to 18 foot. And she said thing was. She said it was. Too big to be a Bigfoot, and she didn't know what to make of it, and so she never reported it to anyone because she was wanting to know what I thought about it. But it's like, that sounds like the mountain giant type, so it doesn't have to necessarily be a mountain, but the more human looking ones a lot of times are the biggest ones.
Right.
Yeah, incredible. And my friend from Crypto Reality, he had one jump across a path, and it jumped over the bushes and landed like 20 feet across this little levee thing he was on, and landed on the other side of the levee on its tiptoes, and then turned around and looked at him. And this was a white one. He said it was pure white, but it was chiseled like a Greek god. It had like a hairdo. Very human looking in the face. But then since then he's been researching, and he's come across ape types and chimpanzee types, orangutan looking types, gorilla looking ones, Native American type, all different kinds. But that first one he came across, he said it was white. It had white hair. It had almost like a hairdo, like the hair came down on the shoulders and stuff, like it had long hair. And it was very human looking, but covered with white hair. And and it was so athletic, it was able to jump over these 8-foot tall bushes and land on the other side of a 20-foot levee and land on its tiptoes gently. It was actually hunting pigs, because these people in these the airboats, they go through the swamps shooting and stuff like that, chasing these pigs. And he thought that this thing was out in front of these boats, taking advantage of these boats pushing these pigs out through the area that it was in, and he thought it was taking advantage of that and kind of snagging some of the the prey that they were driving. But that makes sense. Whatever it takes, to make it easier.
Right.
So after that, I mean, what do you think? Like when you go out in the woods now?
It makes me. I don't have the same feeling anymore. I don't really try to do it, but I'm not afraid of it. I mean, I would do it again, but I would do it with a whole different mindset. I would not have the same mindset that I had that day. It changed me. I mean, I always believed in it, but like I said, I actually had that experience, and it just, I wouldn't have the same feeling any longer at all that I once had.
Right. Yeah. And you know, they're not all the same either. There's a
Right.
type that has like that seems to be like, especially when it gets darker and stuff like that out, that has like red glowing type eyes, Janasqua type, and they tend to be more like opportunistic on hunting and more dangerous toward humans. And
Right.
you know, who knows for sure on everything, but there are some that are dangerous, and there's some that seem not to be so dangerous, and so you never really know what type you're going to run into, you know. So
Yeah, that's exactly right.
right,
So I don't think I would want to really. I mean, honestly, even though it was a great experience, it still leaves me with thoughts of anything could have happened, and so it's really not. Like you said, it's not really safe. I don't think I would want to have that experience again, but at the same time, I'm glad I did get to actually experience it because I'm still here to talk about it. And
right,
but at the same time, it was scary. I mean, it really it sends a feeling through you that you don't ever forget.
right. I had someone send me a story. Let's see if I can pull it up right quick. Let's see here, stories to read. I try to sort these emails out. And this person basically had something happen when he was younger. He'd watched the JT video with the game warden, you know, and he says, you got time to hear this?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He says, when I was 14 years old, I went to summer camp, and this guy's name is Robert, and I won't say his last name in case he doesn't want to share, but he says, when I was 14 years old, I went to summer camp for a couple of days in Estwada, Oregon. It was summer, and it was getting to be twilight time. There were many young kids playing and yelling as kids would normally be at a camp and this kid happened to be 2 years old, you know, and he said the 2-year-old went missing, and the mom started panicking and was in the kid had disappeared, and she was trying to find him. And I asked the other kids. He was a kid too, not 2 years old. He was more, I think, teenage type. What did he say? He was 14, yeah. And he said, I asked the other kids where was the last place that they saw him, and this 2-year-old, and they said he was standing behind them at the edge of the dry swamp. Then he was gone. So the kid was standing behind him at the edge of this little swamp area, and then all of a sudden they look back and he's gone. He said, I had a strong feeling to go into the dry swamp. I was a runner, so I started. I started the running. I started to run the trail. It zigzagged through the flat, dry swamp that was at the edge of the lake and the steep, deep forest. I ran about 3/4 of a mile when I heard a little noise or a little voice singing at the edge of the swamp. There was a little creek and the start of the deep forest right behind. I found him. I started yelling at him, telling him he worked his mother up, so much, Then I heard a grunt behind me, and a rustle of the bushes. I thought I thought it was a deer. I don't have my glasses on, so kind of pardon my lack of ability to read so well. But he said I thought it was a deer. I turned around and confronted and confronted face to face with the 6-foot male Sasquatch. It was grinning at me, at
Yep.
the kid and me. His smile. He said he smiled like his smile like rotting circus and garbage. Oh, he smelled. Okay, this says he smelled like rotting garbage and like a circus or something. I don't know what he means by that, but he had big yellow teeth, and the white part of his eyes were yellowish and bloodshot, like a human looks when they don't sleep and just woke up. He looked at me curiously. He had no neck, had a large male chest, super broad shoulders, and growled and grinned at me like a psychotic human about to attack.
Oh, wow.
He said, I personally I panicked mentally what seemed to be an eternity, but probably was 3 seconds. I grabbed the kid and started running toward the camp. I headed, I heard it chase me, ripping vegetation and to shreds behind me. So this thing was running behind him and ripping the vegetation to shreds, like you hear about sometimes. I mentally said, "Oh God, I'm gonna die today." Sorry, I'm gonna die today. I'm too young to die. Okay, so let's see here. I'm too young to die. The sound was right next to my ear, like he was almost on top of me. Then a minute or two went by, and all of a sudden, all the ripping of the foliage stopped. It was like I passed an invisible line in the swamp. I was within a quarter mile from the camp. I returned the boy to the mother, and she was, in tears of joy and stuff like that when she got her kid back. Then we all heard a blood-curdling sound coming from the same area of the forest. It sounded angry and pissed, and the sound followed the ridge of the forest and went over the ridge to the next valley. And then he said this was a Christian camp, and everyone in the camp was in shock, knowing what happened, what have you. But anyway, I thought it was very interesting that he chased this thing, and when he finally caught up to it, this thing had took the 2-year-old boy, but it set the boy down, and then it went off to the side and let him pass, and then he pops up behind the guy, and when he turns around, when he hears it grunt and stuff, it's giving him this big grin, looking him up and down with these big yellow teeth, like he's smiling. He said, had these big old yellow, square-looking teeth, and it was sinister looking, like it was staring him up and down. And he grabs the kid and runs, and he thought that there seemed to be like some line which the thing couldn't cross. Right. Because it was possibly a Christian camp or what have you. I don't know for sure what happened there, right. But very interesting that this thing took the boy, and it caught up. They caught up to him, and he kind of gave up for a minute. But then once he got out of there with the kid, it was running around screaming and throwing a temper tantrum, and went over the ridge and was gone. So that to me is an incredible story too, and I thought I would read that one, just to kind of help us with time and what have you, because I know you told your story kind of a little bit quick. But
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because that reminds me of another story I saw on YouTube. Also, it's about a hunter in Louisiana. He said the same thing. He said where they set up in the trees and they hunt, they wait for deer or whatever. He said one came up and he noticed he was in the tree, and he said he looked at him real sinister, and he said he made a call like a bird, and he said he saw the brush being cut down, like in other words, and he called another one to run over there, that they can make sounds of animals that they're communicating with, and he said he started like a bull running through a bunch of tall grass, and all of a sudden two of them showed up there, and he said he's never been out to hunt again, because he said he slowly climbed down, and they were looking at him sinister, and he just simply was walking to his truck, and they started walking alongside of him, and I know that feeling, just that they were aggressive, and he got in the truck and he took off, he said, because they started chasing him after he got into the truck.
Yeah, see, that's the scariest type. I think
Yeah.
that when they look at you with a grin and they're looking you up and down, and that you can convey a lot of stuff with nonverbal communication, and that's scary, dude. It's like, no way.
You're right. Your story reminded me of that one, because he said the exact same thing, but these were like two. This one called another one over, so they both were looking at him sinister. And he said he's never. I mean, he will not hunt again. It affected him in that way. And I could have been in the same position, but the one I've met, he had a very peaceful, kind look, and he did the same thing. He walked beside me, but he did not grin. He did not look at me in any kind of sinister way.
Right. And this guy said this one was like 6 foot, so that seems more like a juvenile, doesn't it?
Yeah, that is definitely a juvenile.
Right, and maybe out there kind of getting in some mischief, and thought it was funny that he took the kid, and then, he's smiling and grinning with a sinister grin, and showing his yellow teeth, and, I mean, oh my gosh, it just sounds so scary. The way he described it.
Yeah, that would send some fear through you.
Oh goodness, yeah. The grin would be horrible. That would be just too much. Yeah. It's like, no, dude, you're gonna,
Because he said the guy that story I just said, he said he had a shotgun. He said he was pointing it at him, and he looked at him sinister. But he said the only reason he couldn't shoot it because it looked human. He said that's why he didn't try to use his shotgun. He said because it looked like a man, it looked human, and I understood that. And so he said he thought, I'm just going to step down real slowly and just walk off real slowly. And if they don't do anything, I'm not gonna shoot. But he said once they allowed him to get into the truck, they started chasing him.
Yeah. I think it's more or less to make sure you leave the area and don't come back.
Right.
It seems like
that's it.
As of now, I know that there's a lot of people come up missing, and I think that there are types that take, and even the Native Americans said that there was a lot of types that were cannibal, and things like that. So there's probably, that Janoskwa type or whatever, that they talk about, who knows exactly, but there seems to be some that take people, and there's a lot of people that come up missing in national forest and what have you.
Oh yeah.
So it makes it seem 10 times scarier than it maybe should be, because most of them are wanting you just to go on so they can do their thing. And,
right.
They just want to know where you're at. That's why he said we watch. Because they put some on the edge of the woods as sentinels to, when you come in the woods, you'll hear a crack. You'll hear a tree pop, like in areas like I live in. When you go into the woods, you'll hear a knock. And they're just letting the others know someone's come in. And then, they've got their system down to where it's like someone come in on the trail up here at this point here that I'm at, and then and as you go down further, you'll hear another knock. If you turn and go up another trail, you'll hear a knock from another direction, and they're just letting everybody know these are where these guys are at, and everything's cool right now. They're staying on the trail doing their thing, and the babies are going to be all right, where they're raising their young ones at, and
Right.
so I think there seems to be like people that are the ones that watch and make sure where the humans are, and if it becomes a threat, then that's when it gets aggressive. And that's, I think,
Exactly.
most of the aggressive stuff starts with that type of deal, or when people feed them and then stop feeding them.
Right.
That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Yeah. Other than that, they just want to be left alone because they don't want the problems, Because they know
Yeah,
that
also,
over the history, humans tend to, wipe things out. We make stuff go extinct. We can cause an extinction event.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they have a lot of faith in humans. I think, like you said, they just want to be left alone and kind of live their own way.
You're right. Yeah, and I guarantee you they pass that information down. There's been extinction events here. Families have come up totally extinct over these humans. They get their stuff together and they come out in posses and hunt things down and burn you out and all that kind of stuff. But
right.
But anyway, I mean, your story is really cool, man. I really liked that story, and that's why I contacted you, and I just had to have you come share that. And I hope everybody liked it.
Yes, so thank you very much for allowing me to. I thought I would probably just keep it to myself, but I thought this would probably be the best place to tell it if I was going to tell it.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience? What you think about it, or your opinion, or anything like that?
Well, I would say this. I know there are people that believe and people who do not believe, and I respect that both ways. But I promise you, if you ever have an experience where you run into one, it will leave you. You will think differently from there on out. You will not. If you have an experience with an aggressive one, you may leave with some hard feelings. You may not like them, but if you have an experience like I did, it will change you, and you'll realize that they're not all bad. Because we hear a lot of dark stories about the ones that do the sinister stares and do other things. But if you have an experience like I do, you will have more respect because you'll realize that they're really just trying to live their lives, and they're really not wanting to do anything to anybody. But like you said earlier, if they feel threatened, then I guess they get aggressive. But I would say just realize we're not alone, that we are being watched.
Right. And do you think that they're in every state except for Hawaii, like I do?
Yeah, I think they are everywhere, and even maybe in the deep forests of Hawaii. I went and down if one is there, because I think they're everywhere.
Right. I know there are some types of things out there in Hawaii because I've had people send me stories. They were littler, like 2 foot tall, like creatures.
Right. Yes.
Because that's a big ocean, to get to Hawaii. But the reports come from everywhere, and then you have reports from Hawaii that are different, but there's still some type of cryptid there. I think there's cryptids in every forest, don't you?
Yes, there are, because this is going to sound strange to say this, but one thing I'd like to add is when this happened, I started doing a lot of research just to make sure that, to see where the sightings have been. I mean, like you said, they've been all over, but if you even go back to Soviet times, over in Soviet Russia, like as far as Siberia, which I have been before, there's a story about some students that went over there to camp out, and they were attacked by one and killed. And they were found weeks later by people, and they had all kinds of things done to their bodies and everything. They call them something different over there. I forgot the name they use, but there's a famous story from the 1950s, if anyone wants to look it up, about Soviet students.
I think I know what you're talking about. And it was like they cut themselves out of the tent from the inside and ran barefoot and everything in the snow.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And one woman's tongue was removed from her mouth, and some real strange.
That almost sounds. Man, I'm not sure if that's Bigfoot or not. That might be more Dogman or something or not. I'm not sure, but that is one freaky story right there. the
Yes.
Datov Pass or something like that. I can't remember what it's
Right.
called.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
they found some like big old metal dome like things out there. Um,
Right.
yeah, that's a creepy, weird story. I really don't know what to make of it totally, but I was thinking it could have been, some Sasquatch type stuff. It could have been them running in fear from like a Bigfoot, or it could have been a dog man thing. It could have been alien type, something. I don't know. Who
Right.
knows, man? But that's a creepy, creepy story. And they
Yes.
ran in fear from something, and they ran to their death through snow, knowing they were going to freeze. You can't run through, cut yourself out of a tent and take off running through the Siberian wilderness.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's a strange one. For
Yeah, I
sure.
guess the whole. Yeah, you're right. That the whole thing is, I guess we as people, I mean, we are really not alone. There's so many things out there that if you run into them, it will change you. But if you don't run into them, just know you're not alone. I mean, there's things out there that we still don't really know much about.
Yeah, I remember this one case where this guy came on. His story's on the channel, and he was. I don't know if it was Philippines or I can't remember now, but he had a creature. It was him and a cop friend of his, and his cop friend had his gun and everything, and they were like, it was a university type hazing type thing. They went out to this wilderness, and you were supposed to be able to go across this certain area to another point, and you would, basically pass your test, the hazing thing. And while the students took off, him and his police buddy, who was the officer, was standing there, and all of a sudden they heard something fly over and go thud on the ground. And they looked over, and this thing was leaning kind of on the tree, pushing itself up, and it had wings. He said the thing was covered in like black fur. And it turned around. It had a white face, almost like a clown, and it had
No.
these huge. He said this thing had huge, like bat wings, and it was huge, and it looked at him with like this crazy grin. And if you listen to this dude tell it, man, I mean, you can tell that it's something that happened. So it was a big, bat-like humanoid creature that had a black furry body with bat type wings and a white face like a clown, dude. And that to me just sounded scary. And he said his
That sounds
cop
like.
buddy pulled his gun and started shooting, and told him to run. And
Oh,
he takes off running, and his cop friend takes off running and shooting, kind of, as he was running, And they both got out of there, but and he didn't know where to share his story. He was like, "Man, I got to tell somebody about this." He ended up, coming on and telling it here. But to me, I thought that was, man, that is crazy. And he ended
yeah.
up going back and went to these cave-like areas and saw drawings in these caves that were similar to what he had saw.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like the Mothman. That little story that happened in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Right.
That bridge collapsed, and they said they saw a similar to what you just said. They said they saw a creature like that.
Yeah, it just goes to show, man, that there's all kinds of crazy things, out there. And the wilderness is it's kind of amazing, man. When you are out away from people. I know, like in the book of Isaiah, it talks about places that are out away from people. You have like the satyr and doleful creatures and habitation for dragons. And I mean, what is a doleful creature? You know what I'm saying? And it talks about the screech owl and the satyr actually means, when you look it up in Hebrew, means hairy. So what does that mean? You know, hairy, because a lot of people think, well, that's the goat-looking creature, but you know, the word actually translates into hairy. So,
Right.
is it some type of hairy creature out away from people that lives out, you know, in the wilderness, you know, where people are not? And what is doleful creatures, you know? So, I
Right.
mean, to me, it raises a lot of questions, you know. It's like, what the heck is out there where people are not, you know? And when
Right.
we encroach on their
Exactly.
territory, you know, we sometimes encounter these things. And, you know, most of the time it's Bigfoot or something like that. And in recent times, it's become this dogman thing phenomenon, too. And
Right.
that's pretty, you know, I've had some very, very credible witnesses share stories about dogmen, and you know, that was something I really didn't know what to think about at first. But when you have people that are federal officers that share stuff, and judges, and you know, things like that, it's like, man, you can't just dismiss it, you know.
Right. Yeah, it's something.
Yeah, there's something going on. But typically
Yeah.
it's Bigfoot, you know,
Yes.
most of the encounters that people have out in the woods. But every once in a while it's something else. And, you know, sometimes even, I was trying to get this one Native American girl to come on. She came out of her teepee one night when they were having like this, you know, they don't typically live in teepees no more, but they have like these things a couple times a year. And she said she got up and was going to use the bathroom, and she came out of her tent. She shined her light, and she said there was a 3 foot tall creature that was holding a big old piece of bark in front of its face, trying to hide its face. Yeah, a 3 foot
Yeah.
tall thing, man. It was standing there, and it was holding this piece of bark in front of its face. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get you to come on and tell that. So I'm going to keep trying to reach out to her and see about getting her on, because she said she would. Just a
Oh
matter of
yeah.
catching up with her. That would be an interesting story there. She's had Bigfoot encounters, the 3 foot tall creature, and these other wolf type things on the reservation. So that
Oh
should be
yes.
some interesting stuff.
Yeah,
But
that would.
but anyway, man, I thank you, bro, for coming on and sharing.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. I'm glad to be able to finally tell it.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, man, because you know, it takes some courage to go, you know, share stuff. You know, it's
Right.
not easy
Yeah.
to do, really.
No, because I thought, because we hear so many things, I thought it might just be best not to really say anything. But
Right.
when I watched your show, I thought, no, this is perfect. I need to say something.
Right. Well, Stephen, thank you very much, and hold on the line there. And everybody out there in YouTube land, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed that. And even, you know, I try to throw in that extra little story at the end there. I'm still going to try to get that guy to come forward and share his story too. But I think Stephen's story here is very interesting. The way that it went down, it's kind of a very abnormal. Almost as if the thing wanted him to go on. It's like, you know, just go that way and everything's going to be all right. And, you know, and called itself We Watch, you know, kind of almost like a Watcher situation. And I knew a lot of you are going to kind of take a lot from all that and come to conclusions. So leave your comments in below on the video here, and then make sure you like the video, share it, and if you want to share something, then you know that you can go to the description there, brentonsawin@gmail.com, and contribute at the link in the description. PayPal me. God bless, and I'll see you all on the next video. Bye.